They laughed too early. That is the whole story. That is the mistake they made, and they made it a long time ago, and they have been living inside that mistake ever since without knowing it. They laughed too early. They counted the score before the game was over. They looked at you in your weakest season, when you had nothing, when you were quiet, when you were broken down to almost nothing, and they decided that what they saw was the final version of you. It was not the final version. It was the seed underground. And here is what nobody tells you about seeds. Underground, a seed looks exactly like it is dying. It splits open. It cracks. It loses its shape. Anyone standing over that dirt with a shovel would swear the thing was finished. But that cracking is not death. That cracking is the only way life gets out. They saw the cracking. They called it the end, and they walked away laughing. Now something is happening that they cannot explain, and it is making them uncomfortable in a way they cannot name out loud. You are still here. Not just still here, you are steady. You are not begging. You are not chasing them. You are not scrambling to prove anything. There is a calm on you that does not match everything they know about what you went through. And that calm is doing something to them that no argument you could have made ever would have done. It is scaring them, not you. Let me be precise about that, because this matters. They are not afraid of you. You are the same person you always were. Same laugh, same tired eyes, same hands. They are afraid of what is on you. They are afraid of the thing they cannot see but can absolutely feel in the room when you walk in. They are sensing God through you, and they do not have a category for it, so they are calling it arrogance or coldness or you've changed. Yes, you have. That is the point. Let me take you somewhere in Scripture, because this pattern is not new. This pattern is so old, it is practically the signature God leaves on his work. There was a young man in Egypt, 17 years old, dreamer, and his brothers hated him for the dreams, which is the oldest reason in the world to hate someone. They stripped him. They threw him in a pit. And I want you to sit with this detail because it is one of the coldest details in the entire Bible. They sat down and ate a meal. They ate lunch next to the hole they had put their brother in. They could hear him, and they passed the bread. They laughed too early, because that pit was not a grave. That pit was a doorway. That pit was the first coordinate on a map that ended in a palace. And Joseph did not get to see the map. Joseph got the pit, then the slave market, then Potiphar's house, then a false accusation from a woman who wanted him, then a prison cell, then years of being forgotten by a man who promised to remember him. Every single one of those stages looked like defeat, and every single one of those stages was construction. Here is what most people miss about Joseph. When he finally stands in front of his brothers again, he has all the power, all of it. He can end them with one sentence. Guards are standing right there. He could take everything back. And what does he do? He weeps so loudly the Egyptians in the next room hear it. That is not weakness. That is a man who understands something they never will. He looks at them, the ones who ate lunch over his screaming, and he says, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Do you understand what he just told them? He told them, "You were never the author. You thought you were writing my ending. You were just holding the pen God was using." That is the terror. That is the exact moment the fear enters the room. Not when Joseph threatens them. When Joseph forgives them. Because forgiveness from a man who could destroy you is the loudest possible proof that someone bigger is standing behind him. And that is what is happening in your life right now, whether you can see it yet or not. But here is where it gets real. Somewhere along the way, you started believing them. Not all at once. Nobody breaks all at once. It came in slowly, the way water gets into a basement, one quiet drop at a time, until one morning you go downstairs, and everything you stored down there is ruined, and you cannot remember when it started. Somebody said you were too much, and you shrank a little. Somebody said you were dramatic, sensitive, always making things spiritual. And you learned to stop saying the things you were actually seeing. Somebody laughed at your dream, not cruelly. That is the thing. Sometimes it is not even cruel. Sometimes it is just a little laugh at the dinner table, a look between two people who think you did not catch it, and you put the dream in a drawer, and the drawer got heavy. You have been carrying a drawer full of buried things for years, and you have been calling that maturity. You have been calling that being realistic, being humble. That was not humility. Humility is knowing exactly what God put in you and refusing to worship it. What you were doing was hiding. There is a difference, and the enemy has been blurring that line in your life for a very long time because a chosen person who thinks they are ordinary is the safest thing in the world to him. He is not afraid of a person with a calling. He is afraid of a person with a calling who knows it. Think about that for a second. Every single hell you have walked through, every closed door, every friend who turned, every job that fell apart the week before you needed it most, every season where the prayers seemed to hit the ceiling. What if none of that was punishment? What if it was containment? You do not build a fence around an empty field. You build a fence around something valuable. And the intensity of the opposition on your life has never been evidence of God's absence. It has been evidence of what is inside you. They underestimated you. Fine, everyone did. But listen, you underestimated you too, and that has cost you far more than they ever could. Let me show you another one. There was a shepherd boy standing in a valley. His own brother mocked him in front of everybody. I know your conceit. I know your wicked heart. You just came down to watch the fighting. That is what family sounds like sometimes. Not the enemy. Family. The people who share your last name and your dinner table, and who somehow cannot see 1 inch of what God put in you. The king dressed him in armor. Real armor. Adult armor. The kind everybody said he needed. And he took it off. That is the moment. Not the stone. Not the giant. That moment right there. When a teenage boy stripped off the world's protection and said, I have not tested this. I cannot walk in this. That is when the fight was already won. Because he had a history nobody watched. A lion, out in the pasture, when no one was looking. A bear, out in the field, with no audience, no applause, no witnesses. Nobody threw a parade for the lion. Nobody wrote a song about the bear. But God saw the pasture. And when the valley came, David was not walking in as an underdog. He was walking in as a professional. He had already done this. Just quietly, just where no one could give him credit. You have a pasture. You have private victories that nobody ever clapped for. Nights you did not quit, when quitting was completely available. Temptations you turned down and never told anybody about. Forgiveness you extended to people who never even knew they needed it. Prayers you prayed in a car in a parking lot with your hands shaking. Nobody saw the pasture. They only ever see the valley. And so when the valley comes, and you handle it with a calm that does not make sense to them, they think it came from nowhere. It did not come from nowhere. It came from 10,000 unwitnessed hours with God. That is why they cannot compete with you. They are trying to beat your valley. They have no idea about your pasture. And then there is the one nobody wants to talk about, because his story does not fit the way we like to tell these things. 40 years old. Raised in the most powerful house on earth. Educated in every skill Egypt had. A man of position, of language, of standing. And he tries to help his people badly, violently, on his own strength, and it goes wrong, and he runs. 40 years in a desert, watching sheep that were not even his. Do the math on that. He was 80 years old before the bush burned. 80. He had a wife, a couple of sons, a father-in-law's flock, and a life so far from the palace that the palace probably felt like something he had dreamed once. Everyone who had ever known him in Egypt had written him off. He was a footnote, a scandal that got quiet. If you had asked anyone in Pharaoh's court about Moses, they would have shrugged. Dead, probably. Gone. Doesn't matter. They laughed too early. And here is the part that gets me. When God finally speaks to him out of that fire, Moses argues. He does not fall to his knees in gratitude. He argues. He says, "Who am I?" He says, "I am slow of speech." He says, "Send somebody else, send anybody else." That is a man who has been in the desert so long he has forgotten what he was made for. Sound familiar? You have been in the pasture so long that when God moves, your first instinct is not joy, it is protest. Are you sure? Have you seen my record? Do you know what I did? Do you know how long it has been? He knows. He was there for every year of it. The desert was not God losing track of you. The desert was God unteaching you Egypt. Because the Moses at 40 would have led those people out and led them straight back into slavery of a different kind, his own. He had the fire but not the meekness. He had the passion but not the patience. And you cannot part a sea with passion. You part a sea with a rod in the hand of a man who has stopped needing to be impressive. 40 years to build the palace man. 40 years to unbuild him. 40 years to use him. You are somewhere in the middle of that math right now. And I know it is uncomfortable. But the desert is not the punishment. The desert is the workshop. Now I want to say something to you directly, because I think you need to hear it from a person and not just from a story. My name is George, and I have been walking with people in this exact place for a long time now. People who feel marked, but cannot explain the marking. People who have been called weird, too intense, too spiritual, too sensitive their entire lives. People who lost friendships they did not want to lose and could never quite explain why the room got cold. I have sat with a woman in her 60s who told me, through tears, that she spent 40 years apologizing for being the way God made her. 40 years. She kept saying, "I just didn't want to be too much." And I asked her, "Too much for who?" She did not have an answer. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived. Things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let me tell you what is actually happening in the invisible right now, because this is the part almost nobody explains. The people who hurt you are not the enemy. I know that is hard. I know some of them were vicious, and some of them enjoyed it, and some of them are still telling the story wrong to anybody who will listen. But they were instruments. They were used. In many cases, they did not even understand what they were doing, or why they suddenly felt such a strong dislike for someone who had never done anything to them. Have you noticed that? How some people decided against you before you ever spoke? That was not personality conflict. That was recognition. Something in them recognized something on you, and it recoiled. The same way a man walking past a church he does not believe in still feels a little strange. And here is what shifted. Somewhere in the last stretch of your life, in a season you probably could not stand while you were in it, God started sealing things in you that used to leak out. You used to react. Now you pause. You used to need the last word. Now you can let it go and sleep fine. You used to be able to be pulled into any argument. Now people bait you, and you just look at them. That is not you getting cold. That is you getting sealed. And a sealed vessel terrifies the enemy, because a sealed vessel cannot be drained. Think about Daniel. Everyone remembers the lions. Almost nobody remembers what actually got him thrown in there. They investigated him. Grown men, professional administrators, went through this man's entire life, looking for one crack, one bribe, one lie, one woman, one misfiled report. Anything. They found nothing. And so they said, and this is one of the most chilling lines in the Bible, "We will never find any charge against this man unless it has something to do with the law of his God." Read that again. The only way to trap him was through his devotion. His faith was the only opening they could find. So they made his faith illegal. That is what happens when your life gets clean. They stop being able to attack your character, so they start attacking your God. And Daniel's response? He went home, opened the windows, not the closet, and prayed exactly like he always had. 3 times a day, facing Jerusalem, where anybody walking by could see him. He did not hide. He did not compromise. He did not even argue. He just kept doing the thing that made him dangerous. And then he went into a den of lions, and God shut their mouths. And when the king came in the morning and called down into the pit, terrified, Daniel answered from the darkness, like a man who had gotten a full night's sleep, because he had. Do you understand what that does to the people watching? Do you understand what it does to a system built on fear? When a man goes into the worst thing it has and comes out rested, that is the terror. That is what they are actually afraid of, not your success. They could handle your success. They would just say you got lucky. They are afraid of your peace in a place where peace should not be possible. And that is what you are starting to carry. There is a woman in Scripture who understood this better than almost anyone, and she understood it in the worst possible circumstances. An orphan, a foreigner, a girl with no name, no father, no leverage, and no vote in what happened to her body or her future. She was taken not invited, taken into a king's house as one girl among many, and by every measure that the world uses, she was nothing, a face in a room full of faces. And there was a man in that kingdom who wanted her entire people erased, not defeated, erased. He had the paperwork drawn up. He had the king's ring pressed into the wax. It was done. He did not know she existed. Think about that. The man engineering the destruction of an entire nation had absolutely no idea that the girl in the palace, the quiet one, the one nobody was watching, was one of them. He had planned everything. He had accounted for everything, except her. That is what it means to be underestimated by hell. And when the moment came, her cousin sent her a message that I think is one of the sharpest sentences ever written. He said, "Do not imagine that you will escape, just because you are in the king's house." And then he said the thing. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Not for a comfortable time. Not for an easy time. For this time. For the worst time. For the time when everything is on the line, and there is no one else standing in the gap. She did not have a title. She did not have an army. She had a position nobody thought mattered, and a God nobody knew she served. And she walked into a throne room where walking in uninvited could get you killed on the spot. And she did it anyway. And she said, "If I perish, I perish." That is not recklessness. That is a person who finally understood why she had been placed where she was placed. And the man who wanted her people dead ended up hanging on the very structure he had built for someone else. Read that again. The trap he built. The trap he was proud of. The trap he showed his friends. That is what God does with the things designed against you. He does not just cancel them. He turns them around and lets them do the work they were meant to do on the other side. Every scheme has a builder, and builders get careless about their own construction. Let me get very practical with you now, because I do not want to leave you in a story. I want to leave you with something you can hold. First, stop explaining yourself to people God did not assign to you. You have been spending an enormous amount of energy trying to get certain people to understand you. It is not going to happen. Not because they are evil, because they were not given the eyes. You are handing your best interpretation to someone who does not read your language. Joseph did not explain the dream a second time. He just went and lived it. Second, stop mourning the people who left. Some of those departures were not losses, they were extractions. God pulled certain people out of your life the way a surgeon pulls something out of a body quickly, cleanly, and without asking you if you were emotionally ready. And you have been grieving a removal that saved you. You will understand it later. You always do. Third, the delay was not a denial. It was a sealing. Everything you asked for and did not get in that season, you could not have carried it then. You would have burned it. You would have handed it to the wrong person. You would have used it to prove something to people who were not worth proving anything to. God does not give a crown to a man who still needs applause. He waited until you stopped needing it. Fourth, and this one is going to sting a little, stop rehearsing the injustice. I know it was unfair. I am not asking you to pretend it was not. But there is a difference between remembering something and rehearsing it. Remembering happens once. Rehearsing happens in the shower, in the car, at 2 in the morning, in an imaginary conversation where you finally say the perfect thing and they finally understand. They are not going to understand. And every hour you spend in that imaginary courtroom is an hour you are not spending in the actual life God is trying to hand you. You are litigating a case that has already been settled in a higher court, in your favor, without you present. Let it go. Not for them, for your own hands. You cannot receive with a closed fist. And I really think that is why this season feels so strange to you. Because things are moving now, and you are not excited the way you thought you would be. There is no fireworks. There is just this steady, quiet knowing. And you keep waiting to feel triumphant. And what you feel instead is calm. That is the sign it is real. The fake stuff comes with noise. The real thing comes with weight. There is one more thing I need to say, and then I want to hear from you. The reason they are terrified is not because you are winning. It is because they cannot find the source. Think about it from their side. They watched you get taken apart. They know what you lost. They know what it cost you. And by every calculation they can make, you should be bitter, broke, and bragging about a comeback that never came. Instead, you are quiet. You are kind. You are not keeping score. And there is something behind your eyes that was not there before. They are looking for the trick. They are looking for the man behind it. They cannot find him because he is not a man. That is the moment Nebuchadnezzar had, standing over that furnace. He put 3 men in. He looks down and counts 4. And the 4th one, he cannot describe him. All he can say is, he looks like the Son of God. Somebody is going to look into the fire of your life and count an extra person. They are not going to be able to explain it. They will try. They will call it luck or timing, or say you must have had help. But they will know, in the part of them that does not lie, that something walked in there with you. And when those 3 men came out, this is the detail I love. They did not even smell like smoke, not scorched, not scarred, not even the smell. You are going to walk out of this without the smell of it on you. Not bitter, not hardened, not carrying the fire in your voice for the rest of your life. Clean. That is the real victory. Anybody can survive a furnace. Only God gets you out without the smell. So here is what I want to know, and I want you to be specific with me, because I read these. I want you to tell me about the moment you almost gave up. Not the whole story, just the moment. The day, the room, the thing that was said, the hour you sat there and genuinely thought, I cannot do this anymore. And then tell me one line, just one, about what is different now. Because somebody is going to scroll past your comment tonight in their own worst hour, and your one sentence is going to be the thing that keeps them here. That is not a small thing. That is ministry. That is you, doing what you were made to do, from wherever you are sitting right now. Write it. I will be reading. And remember, everything I spoke about goes deeper inside the secret protocol, pinned in the first comment. The 7 keys, the audiobook, and the awakening map are there waiting for you whenever you're ready to take the next step.